victory celebration. But we'll have to see, you know, this is going to be pulling out all the stops. This could determine the winner right here and right now.
So one thing I want to talk about is when they do get down to that team fight, right? Ashe does have that long range and chance with crystal arrow, so as long as he's able to snipe a good target, primarily anyone that is not Olaf, they're gonna have good initiation. As long as Vlad drops a good ulti and Cassiopeia drops a good ulti, they're going to be able to chunk everybody on CLG's team to about half hit point. And at that point, if Hotshot decides to use his Ragnarok and rush at Cassiopeia, you know, if their entire team switch focus to Hotshot and kills him, he's actually not going to be that tanky. Just because of all the AoE damage, they've done a fair share of damage to everybody, and then they just need to do a minor focus on Hotshot, and they should be able to mellow him out as long as he doesn't get fed early game.
I mean, they definitely have that AoE frontline up in center. We do have a decent comp early on for CLG. We'll have to see. Both teams want to be a little bit defensive here. Definitely don't want to start off at a disadvantage. So Maokai will be safe going after his blue. Not going to start race, it seems, which is a pretty common start for Maokai. It allows him to get level 4 extremely quickly, but it also opens up that ganking opportunity because you know if Maokai is going to be sitting there, obviously you can just rush as a team.
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about is if you look at the mini-map, right, you look at the positioning of COG and TSM, they've gotten every single entrance and exit along the river covered. When people know that they don't want a team fight and they just want to know the enemy's position so maybe they can counter when they invade, they split up like that. That way they have an early warning if the enemy is going to enter at any point. And at that point they can say, hey, say Olaf is invading our jungle or Rise is invading our jungle, collapse on them. You know, they know where at least one person is, and as long as they're all there, they're going to be able to counter.
And so we do see good vision for all the teams. Sona with the great ward up top, recognizing that Maokai is an aggressive ganker very early on, and if Vladimir starts off early for his team, that could be a really easy win for TSM. Dyrus just snowballing in that top lane, but we'll have to see how it goes. What do you think are the keys to this game that we should be looking out for that we haven't already discussed?
The key to this game is just really, really strong gank from Maokai. As long as TSM doesn't feed and just play standard and just gank whenever there's an opportunity, I feel like they should be able to pull ahead in the early game. One thing you should expect is, St. Vicious is on Shyvana. Shyvana is a very, very strong counter jungling champion, especially against Maokai. So Maokai will be counter jungled for a good portion of the time. However, since he is a very, very strong ganker, he will be ganking at that time. So, in terms of him falling behind, he'll definitely be behind in CS. But in terms of his contribution to the team, I feel like as long as he's doing something, he's applying pressure, getting counter jungled isn't going to hurt him too bad.
And now this is something I kind of always wonder about. Olaf, definitely has a lot of burst potential early on. Can maybe control the lane against Dyrus. Oh, actually, we have a quick gank there. Missing that for a second. But Olaf has that gank potential, but going with the blue, actually, again, double lift being aggressive bot. Going with the blue early, using his mana to help out his jungler, it does kind of, hurt his lane.
It does. It definitely hurts his lanes. He just probably recognized it right now, because one thing about Olaf is in order to land his double strike, I think it's called, I totally forgot the name. I skipped my mind.
Let me take a look at it real quick. Reckless Swing and Undertow.
Swing. In order to land his Reckless Swing, he needs to land his Undertow to actually slow them enough where he can catch up and continually just chain that damage. So when he had burned about, say, 60% of his mana helping the jungler at the beginning, he's unable to follow that up on Vladimir. So he lost a lot of pressure that he could have applied to Vladimir. So I felt like if Olaf was going to win the lane, he has to win it early. And if he doesn't win it early, he's going to fall behind later.
And so we did have that early ward from Sona helping protect Hotshot up here from the odd one. He does have the double buffs, is trying to get in on those ganks. And actually Cassiopeia coming over doesn't have a ward, so maybe coming over for a gank as well. We'll see if they dive them under the tower. Dyrus is pushing up, and that's what it seems like is going to happen here.
Hotshot is really, really behind. He is behind a level because he did go back and farm, so his hit point pool is actually very, very low.
Odd one taking the tower a little bit, but there's the ghost from Dyrus. We do have some damage coming off from Reginald. Hot shot going to be able to get out of there. Really aggressive play, not quite able to follow up on it. I almost felt like Odd one could have just run to the other side, so he'd be in range for the snare.
He goofed it up a little. Had he waited and not tanked the tower, he could have easily just flashed onto Olaf and have his entire team just collapse on him and get that first blood. Because he had tank tower, he was forced to run back out and drop aggro. Because if he landed that initial twist advance, I believe Reggie and Vlad just needed to land that initial Q WE combo with an ignite, and Olaf would have dropped and died.
And so we actually see bot lane double lift and Chaucer with that really aggressive harass being extremely effective against Chaox. He is out of health potions. He does have Expecial here, but Expecial almost out of mana. So really struggling with the farm here. Wow, all that burst from double lift. They probably won't, go in for the kill. We actually, Shyvana's coming down, so maybe they will go in for the kill. St. Vicious coming in behind them. They do have the red buff. We'll see whether or not they can pick up this kill. Double lift can, always clear to the other side of the tower. There's a little bit of burst, and now St. Vicious is coming in here. Who's going to be taking the tower is key, though. There's the exhaust on the Chaox, and going down very quickly for the first blood. Chaucer taking some damage, but double lift, we'll see if he chases him, but we have the rest of TSM en route, so they definitely need to get out of here. Reginald going to be dueling with St. Vicious here a little bit, not going to be getting that damage off, but Odd one over that wall. He's definitely going to have to watch out for that quick gank, but even so, a great job by CLG for that early first blood.
So one thing I want to mention is both TSM and CLG had the same idea of just, getting behind the tower and getting that early gank in. And really, I felt like whoever got that first gank in is going to have a really, really clear advantage in the game. And I felt like TSM had the opportunity to pull far, far ahead, but they messed up, and CLG actually picked up the advantage instead.
And it's interesting, Graves, one of the best early base stats in the game for any AD carry with his passive. It's just so strong, making him tanky, and then he's got great auto attack animation, great damage against Ashe, who is one of the worst starting base in the game. So that early advantage, will we start to see Graves be able to pressure Ashe some more, be able to maybe zone Chaox from being able to get the levels he needs?
Definitely, Chaox needed to not die, needed to not fall behind, because if he falls behind too early, Graves is going to get to the point where he's going to be able to burst down Ashe with Sona in just a QWER combo. And the more farm he gets and the more behind Chaox gets, the easier it's going to be. And at this point, I feel like he's not too far behind, but he's definitely has a lot of threat and a lot of pressure from Graves and Sona, especially when they both hit level 6. He has the defensive arrow to get away, but they really just need to land their full combo, and he's going to be almost dead, if not dead.
So primarily, TSM, they know that Cassiopeia is one of the best champions in the game at dealing with Dragon and Baron. Do you think that we'll see Reginald coming towards this bot lane, trying to pick up kills once Ashe has the arrow, or are they primarily going to be trying to use Ashe to get kills on other lanes?
I feel like bot is a little bit behind, so ganking them is a little bit harder, but if Cassio is able to get in there, he should be able to pick up a kill with Ashe's arrow.
And obviously that is going to be difficult with Chaucer here, but we actually see TSM going for the aggressive dragon once again because Reginald Cass is just such a strong early game champion. We did have Ryze and Shyvana start going towards that top lane, and so TSM going to be able to pick up this dragon, get that early advantage back in their favor. So, coming into the, as the game progresses, Big Fat, obviously Ryze, one of those, great tanky casters throughout the game. Olaf, extremely tanky. He is one of those original kind of hyper carry champions as a melee. How effective will they be if they can get some farm, maybe snowball a little bit early in this game?
I feel like if CLG does get some farm, it's going to be a very, very hard game for TSM just because they already have the type of comp where they should win early
but
game.
There's the ult from St. Vicious. Dyrus following it up, not going to be able to pick it up just barely, but Hotshot chasing him down, does have the ignite. There's the pull, dodging the cleave, and here's Odd One coming in. Cassiopeia following it up. There's the slow. We do have Dyrus with that range. The cleave is on cooldown, so he will be chasing Odd One. Let's see if he's going to tank it. Going to back off for a second here. In the meantime, Double Lift and Chaucer chasing down this bottom lane. They were able to take the turret and be extremely aggressive there as well. So TSM going to be able to take this top tower, continue pressuring Olaf, get Dyrus that early farm. How key is that to get Dyrus off to a good start, get him really strong as that carry Vladimir?
Basically, I feel like Vlad and Cassiopeia are the two best scaling champion on TSM. And so if they're going to be carried, it's going to be carried by those two just because of the damage output from those two champions.
Oh, but the ult from Chaucer and Double Lift following it up with the fantastic burst damage. And That's the kind of burst damage they have in that bottom lane.
That's the kind of burst damage I was talking about. You know, you give them that slight advantage. Really, all Chelsea and Doublelift has to do is just roll their finger across QWER, and it's gonna give Ashe every time.
We have the CLG chance going off. It is pretty even, but CLG with a slight early advantage. They do have the bottom tower. Dyrus definitely with an advantage top, so that'll be interesting to see whether or not Hotshot can play against that sustain. And you know, Reginald been very safe so far in this game. Good ward coverage around the rivers, been extremely aggressive, hasn't really had to worry about the ganks mid too much.
Like, one thing I like to see more is just a lot more pressure from Maokai on mid, because with the Cassiopeia Maokai mid combo, he should be able to chunk Rise at least the first time and get a kill the second time around. However, both entry to ganking mid is warded, so it's going to be very, very hard for Maokai, but as long as he picks up an Oracle soon, he should be able to, you know, make a turnaround and apply enough pressure mid.
And we actually see Odd One coming right up this mid lane. Chowster throwing the ward there, so again, wanting to know where TSM is at all times, but the flash twisted advance from Maokai is always such a deadly gank. It's honestly one of the scariest ganks in the lane. We'll have to see, you know, Doublelift again pushing extremely aggressively. That ward from Sona allows them to be a little bit more secure. They could probably use a ward at that blue buff, but you know, Doublelift very survivable, has that kind of escapability. He has that quick draw, which will allow him to dodge Ashe's arrow, you know, if they try for that hard engage.
So like the one thing I was telling you about that I was worrying about Chaos is, you know, you have a weaker lane.
Oh, Chaos, there it is, the dash over the wall. We do have the slow from Chowster, so Doublelift is going to be able to get another combo. Will not be able to get it. The ultimate, almost grabbing it. We did have the ultimate, but there's the Ashe arrow following it up. Cassiopeia coming down the lane. Chaos slowing him down. Can Doublelift get out of here? He will turn back, dealing some damage, but it's very close. Reginald is en route, but just barely able to get out. Chowster with the movement speed, able to get them to a clear, safe distance.
That could have been really, really bad for either side. If Doublelift overcommitted just a little bit more, he would have put himself far enough forward that TSM Reginald could have just caught up and slowed him and just probably kill him within about 2 seconds. So, you know, it was really, really, actually thought he would have killed Chaos with his ultimate, but it actually didn't. And he used his heal. And it kind of say, oh man, I'm not going to be able to get this kill anymore. He just used his heal. I'm going to back out. So
honestly, it looked like Chaos used the heal a second too late because
he did. He used it immediately after Graves' ult hit him. So if it was going to kill him, he would have died without being able to use heal.
Yeah, so a really dangerous situation. We see Dyrus starting to pressure top. You know, recognizes he has that great range harass. TSM again slightly behind, but they always have that huge fight potential. They have the great initiation. They have all the burst damage to follow it up. So it'll be interesting